All right. Hey, hi everybody. So here we're back, and what we're going to do here is we're just going to go ahead and create the database schema that we'll be using for developing this application. So as you can see here, there's a couple of pieces of information that we want to store. We'll store, of course, things related to the user, right? Information related to the user. So that'll be standard things like we need a username, we need a first name, last name, middle name, optional. We need things like a piece of information associated with the status of the user, because we may have users that are maybe they're registered or they just registered and they need to go ahead and fill out some other information in order to move forward and gain access to the system. So we'll need like the status of the user. That's another piece of information. We'll also probably want to know whether or not the user is a free tier user or a paid user, right? So those are another piece of information we probably want to capture about the user. Other things we want to capture about the user, of course, is the group, right? So if this is an application and we're tracking, this user may be tracking where the location of these users are. Well, those individuals might be part of a group. So we'll have another piece of information we want to track in the database's user groups. So that'll have something like a user group name and a description of that user group. And another piece of information we'll have to track is who are in the groups. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start that out here. And we'll use, I've also decided to change the name of this thing. I'm going to call it Here, because I've discovered there's another application, or there are several applications by the name of I'm Here, and I was going to change it to We're Here or We Here or something like that, but I think there's an application called We Here as well. So I figure, hey, let's just call it Here. I haven't found anything by that name, so we're going to go ahead and call it Here. Anyway, so let's go ahead and let's store. Hold up, let's see here. I think this is already saved. Let's see. Well, that indicates that it might not be. Let's go ahead and hit the save button. Save. Okay, so that's saved. All right, great. So we want to go ahead and we are going to use the wonderful AI. All right, so we'll use the AI. What we'll do first before that is we want to give the AI a location to put this. And so what we'll do is let's go ahead and store that in a location here. Usually what happens is when you're developing a system like this and you have a database and you have a back end, if not, you can use another technology like Superbase or something like that, which is pretty cool because it sort of houses, anyway, we're not going to get into that. But anyway, in this particular case, since we have a back end and we have a database, we're going to just make this, we'll call this here backend. All right. So in the backend is where we're going to store the files associated with the database. All right. So let's go ahead. So we have here backend, and we'll just call the location resource. All right. So in the resource directory, that's where we're going to put our database files for right now. That will change as our application develops because it will be a Spring Boot application. And as a result of that, there's a structure that Spring Boot applications follow, and we're going to follow that general structure. We're going to be using Maven for compiling. Or we can use, we'll just use Maven. That's fine. All right. So let's go ahead and give our AI that description, and it's going to go ahead and generate the tables necessary. We want it to follow, the whatever the Postgres standards are, or standard SQL, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But we'll look at the output, and from the output, we'll be able to tell whether or not this is what we want. All right. So we'll go ahead and tell it to note here. We haven't actually come up with any hard and fast requirements for this system, meaning that we don't have a huge document of requirements at the moment. We can do that, but right now we're just going to see what we can do based on what we know about the kind of application we're trying to develop. And we can flesh out the application requirements as we go along, or we can actually, write them all out and progress that way. For right now, though, we're going to attack this by just developing the requirements as we go along. In another video series, I'll probably go ahead and use spec-based development, and I'll go ahead and spec everything out in nauseating detail first, and then work with the AI to develop each part of the system in detail and update the requirements as we go along, just because that's pretty much how system development usually goes. So anyway, let's go ahead and ask the AI to generate tables. All right. So user table containing user name, first name, right? First name, first, let's go first, last, middle, names, user status, user type. What else do we have? So we said user type, user status. Notice we didn't put the password in the table. So sometimes you can store a username. You can store a username in another table as well. All right. So you can have something like a username table, and then you can also have a user details table that would have like first name, last name, and other pieces of user information. And then notice what we'll have. We'll also have a table specifically just for the password, because that's going to have a lot of metadata associated with it. Okay, password table. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and I've said user table, password table. Usually in the password table, you're going to have different pieces of information that will help to make the password secure. So usually the password is not stored in plain text, meaning when you look at the password in the table, in the database, you're not going to be able to read it. All right? It's going to be some sort of encoding or encryption or something like that. So in this particular case, what we need we're going to call it a password hash. All right? Password table containing, we don't need to type that, containing password hash. All right. Let's see. Hash type. Maybe that might be the hashing algorithm. Salt. All right. It's another piece of information that helps to give the password a little bit more security, so to speak, right? All right, so we have that. What else do we want to know? We will also, there's another piece of information that we want associated with these tables. We're going to want some auditing. So we want log tables, right? So what log tables allow us to do is to determine what's going on inside of the system. So how many times did this user actually log in? How many times did this login attempt occur? How many times did the login attempt fail? So all those kinds of pieces of information we'll be able to get and derive from logging tables, or what they call audit tables. So we'll ask it to develop audit tables as well. So create audit tables. Create audit tables, right? For each table created. So that means every time a user is created, there's going to be an audit entry actually put into that table. So inside of the user table, we won't need things like, who created the user, when the user is created, or anything like that, because that information will be captured in our audit tables, right? So let's say put information, Put info about time and who. Time, who. Time and who created, all right, something like that. All right, so we'll see what it comes up with. All right. Another table we said we want is user groups. All right, so user groups table, user, containing user group name, description. All right. So we got user group name, description. All right. So what else we got here? So, and then we'll have user group all right, user group members. Hey, all right. Group members have the user ID and user group ID. All right, so that way we know which user belongs to which group. So we want audit tables. Let's say we also want indexes. Create indexes for each table. All right. So indexes essentially allow you to, speed up searching for different pieces of data inside of a table. All right. So we want to make sure that each table has indexes. All right. And what else do we need? So we probably need most likely a way to ensure that this user is the correct user that has logged into the system. So we'll use something called tokens. So when a user logs into the system, the token will be generated, or a set of tokens will be generated and given to that user, so that every time a request is made to the backend from the front end application, the token will be sent to the server, and that way the server knows that, hey, this is the correct user that has the correct access to this particular system. Right, so we'll need a token table. And the reason why we need a token table usually is because we want to make sure that that the tokens that are generated are, one, valid. Also, we want to make sure that if a user logs out, we want to invalidate that token, because usually a token has a time to live, and we can essentially just invalidate the token and ensure that that token is no longer used to gain access to the system. And there's different mechanisms, different ways to actually do that. We're just using some simplistic mechanisms right now just to develop our application. As time goes on, it can and will become more complex. Anyway, so token. So we'll have a token table. All right. So token table, token info, token token status, like if it's valid, invalid, or anything. And invalid tokens will have a time to live. They'll just live for as long as they are relevant. Expire date /time, something like that, right? So once it is no longer valid, then it can be purged from the system. And we'll probably have some sort of batch process that does that. What else do we want? Also, we want to have user position. All right, user position. All right, so user position table stores user's current location. Stores user's current location. Yeah, oh, well, location, all right. So the reason why we essentially want that is because, well, we just want a table that stores the user's current location. As time goes on, we may want a history also. Let's go ahead. User position history. All right, depending upon how you want this to play out. Let's say user position history for 7 days. 7 days. So this table will only house information for 7 days. All right. And then we can have a table for 30 days. All right. 7 days, 30 days, current position. Then we can have one for, whoa, hey, how do you, what, wait, what, oh, hey, okay, well, that's fine. So let's just do 7 days, 30 days, but I was thinking we could just keep on going on. Let's see what it comes up with. All right. You know what I did want to do, hold up. Can we stop this thing? Ah, well, that's interesting. I thought there was a stop button. Oh, here we go. There you go. So we'll stop this. So we'll stop that, right? Because another thing, so we have user position. So yeah, because we actually do want to we want one for 90 days, right? 90 days. However that's supposed to, and then we want one for 180 days. All right. 180 days. And then we'll go ahead and go for 366 days. All right, so essentially, and then we can just probably have a table for the whole entire lifetime or something like that, if we want. I mean, who knows? Who wants that? Who knows? Why not? Hey, we can have a lifetime table. And the reason why we do things like this is for speed, right? Let's say, for example, a user wanted to actually see where they their history for 30 days. Then you'd pretty much go to the 30-day table, right? You go to 7-day table for anything less than 30 days. Well, I should say anything 7 days or less, something like that. And 90 days, you go to the 90-day table to get that. But you're not going to go to the if you're anything 30 days or less, you're not going to go to the 90-day table. You're not going to go to the 100-day table, right? So it's kind of sort of a storage thing as well as a a way to just speed up requesting different kinds of information. Maybe it may be a better way. There may be a better way. Who knows? I don't know. Right, and so we also want to make sure that it puts it here, puts the location, puts the information here. So, all right, put the table file or files here. Now we can go ahead and let it go ahead and do its thing. Oh, generate tables are using Postgres. Oh, Postgresql. All right, and there we have it. So there we go. So all we're doing, we're using Postgresql. Position, and we need to make sure that when we say position, we're talking about latitude and longitude. Lat, long. All right, so we need that position. So user position, All right. All right, okay, let's see. So we know what for audit tables, we probably don't need any audit tables for history. So actually, no, that's not exactly true. We do want an audit table for the history, just in case someone actually changes these. Let's see what it comes up with. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and let's this go ahead and do its thing. Go ahead. Let's see. Let's see. Work it. I'll stop the video while this thing works its magic. Or should I stop the video? I don't know. Let's see. Let it go. Let's see what happens. Pretty long video, but hey, it's all about designing a system. And let's see what we get when we design and develop this system. But I'll stop the video. Why not? All right, we're back here. Looks like we're all done. This is what we got in the file. Let's take a look at it. Postgres schema, user management tokens, positions, and audit tables. Okay, cool. Not bad. A couple of things we probably want to see here. It has some labels at the top, but we probably want a little bit more comments in the file. Just really, some comments about the tables and some of the columns here. They're kind of self-explanatory, but the more comments, the better. Let's see what else we have here. We have, okay, so we have a user table. We have the 7-day positions, 30-day positions, 90-day, 100, okay, 360 positions, and we have the audit tables at the bottom. Okay, all right, not bad. Okay, I see. The audit table is capturing, essentially is just going to really, I don't know if we really want to do this. We may want to come up with okay, I mean, yeah, we can leave it like this right now. I mean, action, it depends on how much you really want to audit, right? So you don't really need to capture the username, first name, last name, each and every single time. Maybe what might suffice is one field, one descriptive field, probably a description field or something like that. And in the description field, you can have the details in it. All right, so it'll be like a large char field or something like that that would have like details about what actually changed. And then we'd have like an action like that. So the action is okay. And the action, I would say in this particular case, we probably want the action to resolve to like a constant, like a set of defined actions. Right, so that's something I'd probably change. So we'll change these here. So user ID fine, audit ID fine, action fine. Yeah, we definitely want to create it in the created by, but anyway, so we'll see. We'll take a look at that. So it looks like that's what it did for all of the tables here. So essentially, it's going to capture each and every detail each time for each table. Not really what I'm after there, but I mean it's not really a bad thing. It creates a lot of data. Create a whole lot of data. But okay, so that's that. So that is what we have for our audit tables. Now we don't really need audit tables for position history. I mean, so the history tables, I don't think we need an audit for that unless a system allows users to change their history, which, yeah. All right, so, but all right, we'll see. We'll keep it for right now. Another thing I do see here that now if we really, all right, so what we'll probably add here, in addition to comments, we'll probably add, this is what we should add. We're going to add a trigger so that every single time a new user position comes into the table, all right, that will be propagated to these tables as well, right? So essentially what we want now, we want the database to manage that. We don't really want to have to manage it. Like let's say, for example, it has 187 days of data. So let the database manage the purging of any data that has to go on inside of these tables, right? Through triggers. Nothing wrong with that, right? So I think that works. So we'll go ahead and tell the AI to go ahead and do that for us. So that's on the list of things to do. What else do we have here? I think that's good enough for right now, right? So we have some user information, we have their password, we have some hash going on, we have the position, and so that pretty much reflects our little diagram over here, right? That's pretty much what we were looking for. And we got some position information coming from the devices. Users belong to groups, and that information will propagate itself to, I guess, to one of these users here. So that all has to do with who's listening, the flow, right? The flow of information. Now, let's see if we're missing anything from our table in that regard. I think that's more of what's going on within the application. Now, we don't have any preferences. All right, so we'll have to add preferences. User preferences. Now, user preferences are probably things like, let's say, for example, one, the user has to actually give us permission. All right, the user has to give us permission as far as how often. As far as GPS access. User has to also, what else now? And there's probably some other things that we probably want to, allow the user to actually change up. Like, for example, maybe like maybe the theme, maybe the theme of the application, where the theme is going to be light or dark. So things like that would go into user preferences. So let's go ahead and tell it to add user preferences. User preferences table. Include a permission to access. Permission to access. What are we going to access? We're going to access location data and theme selection. Make it key value based. Let's see what it comes up with. All right, let's see what happens. This should be rather fast, I would imagine. Let's see. And what do we have? We have a user preferences table, user ID, preference key. All right, that works. I wouldn't say we actually need to create and update and create it at and all that kind of stuff. But hey, let's see what have we got here. All right, cool. So that works. Keep that and added a audit table for us. All right, so we'll keep that. All right, so that'll work for right now. All right, so what else do we have? So we did say we wanted triggers. Update. Include database DB triggers that manage the life cycle, right? Life cycle of data in the history tables. Now, I'm not going to give it any specific direction. Let's see what it actually does. well, let's give it a little direction. Based on the number of days that that should be held in the table. All right. When a user's location is inserted into the into the position user position table. So let's call it into the user position table. It should be added to the appropriate, whatever that means. Let's see what it'll interpret it. Appropriate history tables. Anyway, so we'll see what it thinks it means. Also, we're going to update the name of the user positions table, but for right now, let's leave it like that. We'll make that the next edit. Let's see what happens. All right, let's see. All right, so let's see what we have here. So, okay, so we have functions. So, okay, so to actually perform, it says insert history. So it will actually go ahead and it created that trigger. So, and that is off of, right? Okay, so new. Right, okay, well, and there we go. So we have a nice new trigger, right, that's actually gonna do what we want it to do and delete. Oh, okay, great, excellent. So it's quite straightforward, quite simple. We have a cron job. Looks like we have a cron job here. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep this. This looks great. And let's see. Okay, so user, see, it's actually going to also put the corresponding information for the triggers and all that kind of stuff related to the audit tables. Okay, well, whatever, that's fine. Let's keep that and let's see how this plays out, right? Okay, cool. So I think we're cool. And I think we are good to go. Let's see, hold on. Let's see here, cron job. Here we go, comments for maintenance and scheduling. To schedule automatic clean of position history, use pcron extension. Okay, so pgcron extension. And yeah, okay, so we can actually create a cron job to go ahead and do that. Oh, well, speaking of that, we are using position data. And we'll have to do some sort of position manipulation at some point in time. So, we'll probably also, let's update our GUI here. Update our little diagram. So we're actually going to be using Postgresql GIS. All right, so let's go ahead and put that in there. Let's go ahead and put that GIS in there. That extension, the fact that it said extension reminded me that that's what we will need to do indeed. So there we go. Okay. All right, so there we go. So we have a mechanism that will allow us to, maintain, do some maintenance and all that kind of good stuff. So let's go ahead and change update table name to be user position, current user position, because it's only going to hold one position for the user at a time. To be current user position. And that's that, right? That should be fairly straightforward. All right, okay, well, there we go. Okay, so what do we got? Okay, it's pretty much a replace all. All right, that looks correct. That's the trigger, and let's get the actual, okay, there we go. That looks okay, looks good to me. And there we go, okay. So we'll keep all these changes. All right, so it looks good. All right, so we didn't even run this inside our database, so we'll do that in the next video. But you know, we have a decent amount of hold up, user position history. Okay, cool. So we have a decent amount of stuff here related to our little design. I mean, as you can see, we've generated quite a bit of, you know, what information or design table design here, but not all of it we'll probably keep, but we'll see as we move on and we move forward. Now let's see, what else do we have here? Let's take a look at our indexes. So for our user table, let's look at what the index is composed of. So we have the status. Okay, so we're searching on the status, we're searching on the type of user, and we're searching on the first name and username. So we also want one for the, well, okay, so we don't have anything for the username. So we want to add an index for the username. We want to add an index, oh, let's see, hold up, let's see, password table, we want to add an index for the user ID as well. Great, excellent. Hash type, yeah, well, do we really need that? I don't know about that. Group name index, not bad. That makes sense. Okay, user, yeah, user see what group. Okay, so that's fine. Probably maybe a combination as well of user and group, maybe, but that's fine. Let's see, what do we got here? Let's see, user preferences, user ID, that makes sense. The key makes sense. User ID and the key, okay, that makes sense as well. Nothing wrong with that. This should really just, user ID is fine. I don't know about expire. Yeah, expire is actually not bad to have. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to actually use it because it's an exact time. So, yeah, I don't know what much value that's going to add, but okay. So let's see, we got current position, definitely user ID. Great. Recorded at, yeah, I don't really see that being a big thing there. And of course, everything else really just user ID for the history. All the other, probably get rid of all the other indexes unless we actually need them, you know, for these particular tables, because we don't want to generate a bunch of, you know, it eats up space. So if you're running this thing, let's say, for example, maybe you're running in the cloud, so AWS or Azure or something like that, then you want to basically run this thing as lean as possible, right? So space, you got to pay for space. So let's see, what else do we have here? So yeah, we'll go ahead and do some cleaning up on this thing in the next video. And we'll also have it generate some comments. The video is long enough right now, 40 minutes. All right, so that's good enough. So anyway, so until the next video, see you guys later.